I think we're live.
Good.
Okay.
That was a good party.
Yeah.
That was a good party. And I wish that there were more EOU people here to enjoy the news of that, because that's how it should just be. Life is so bloody short. But the MFA residency is 2 weeks long, and this is the first week. And tonight it's a pleasure to introduce and welcome back to EOU Carl Adamczyk. I took my glasses off. I can't even read this. It's like it was so far away. I better put these back on. It might work better. Carl was last here, I think, maybe 3-4 years ago, and it seems like 100 years ago, frankly. But and I was feeling guilty about not having you back in the interim. But he was here to read then, after the publication of Curses and Wishes, which won the Walt Whitman Award from the American Academy of Poetry, and later won the Oregon Book Award in poetry. And that book was praised by Marvin Bell for how the emotion of the poems is embedded, not proclaimed. By which I think he meant the way the imagery and shifts in imagery carried the weight of emotion in the poems. Carl's new collection is Saint Friend, which I think there are copies of here. It is a beautiful book. You can't hear me? It is a beautiful book. If you, this is Jody Barron, who never hears anything I say, and Saint Friend is made up of mostly longer sequences of no less lyric poems than in Curses and Wishes, though the poems now are even more confident and patient in their unfolding. What is striking, too, is how intimate and personal the poems in Saint Friend feel, though they are often polyphonic, speaking across time and place in many and diverse voices. I feel very much at home among these poems that are expressive of what I associate with the kinds of poets and poems, particularly European modernists, whose work I feel close to, and that Carl, as an editor and publisher of Tavern Books, has devoted his time and effort to keep in print and make available to a new generation of American readers. In the introduction to their interview with Carl and McSweeney's, Jesse Nathan and Dominic Luxford referenced several of Carl's literary predecessors, Thomas Tranströmer, Walt Whitman, and Lorraine Nedeker, which is not to say that they meant Carl's work is derivative, rather quite the opposite. Like all great art, his poems are the distinctive embodiment of recombinant DNA. In his case, privileging the image, a humane fellow feeling, and a precision and rhythmical complexity. In the same interview, Carl says he likes to write to the music of Arvo Pärt. And the minute I read that, I thought I could just hear Für Elise in the background, and I could hear Spiegel im Spiegel. Do you know that record? Where three different pianists play the same piece, and it's so quiet and gentle and lovely. And if there was one place on earth he would like to visit in his life, it is Krakow, Poland, which was, I think, where Miloš Zimborska and the wonderful fellow who's still alive, James, we love him. His name is Praise the Mutilated World, Zagajewski. Zagajewski lived together. And to which I can only add, amen. You are my true soul brother. God bless you, man. Read some poems to us.
That's so funny. I actually, there's a bookstore in Portland called Mother Foucault's. They have a piano. They have a little stage. And I was talking to the owner, Craig Florence, and he said, "Don't you think everyone should know like one song on the piano? Don't you think that?" And I was like, "Well, I never thought that, but I do want to know one song on the piano." And I learned that Arvo Part song. I played it in his, sadly, to all the patrons, I guess, because I played it over and over and over and over and over again. But I learned that song in his bookshop, the Spiegel and Spiegel. I'm going to read the first poem in St. Friend, and then I'm going to read some new poems, and then I'm going to read the last poem in this book. And as David was saying, they're a little longer. I had this vision for the book. I was walking around and I thought, oh, I guess I have to write another book. And I had this vision of the table of contents being really short. It's really what I wanted to make. That was it. That's the whole vision. And since I'm not so bright, I realized, I was like, well, how would you do that? And I realized I just had to write longer poems. It's called Layover. They keep paging Kenneth Koch at the airport. Someone should let the announcer know he is dead, that there's no city he can go to, that no one is expecting him. Once I applied to be a horse. The mirror of night had shut its close, and I needed to be something that mattered. I needed to scrape my brown flank against the bark of a ponderosa. My friends have moved away. They sleep in places I've never been, and here we are. It's the most miraculous thing. We walk over counterweighted bridges in love with snow tumbling through their lights. The terminal's long glass walls dark at this hour. I feel we live similar lives, only the time zone and language different. In the cab on the way, I saw what was real and humane in front of a pub. A bicycle leaning against a thin trunk, lights strung in trees reflected in shop windows. I loved the way they loved out there at dusk. Tables littered with wallets and phones, hats, a beer divided between two glasses, someone showing someone a new shirt, sheltered in the camber of voices. I thought nothing will ever be easier or better. We will not rise. It is too late. The year we write on our checks, too high to ever expect anything to be different. We will always live here, ancient and new. These are the people we are. Saint Friend, carry me when you are tired and carry yourself. Let's keep singing the songs we don't live by. Let's meet tomorrow. We don't have to wait until the holidays. The distance is long, but it is nothing. Remember when we lived together, when we kissed, when we talked about fog on the morning lake and the markings we wanted on our graves. The city is lit. I am up in the air. It is yes until I die. And when I die, I want to be paged once a day in an airport somewhere on this earth, so people will think I am just running late or lost, will think I am in transit, sad about the last embrace, or sad to leave the city of snow and bridges, or eager to land, to walk the small wooden streets of my house. One city, once a day, I wish that for everyone. An unknown elegy briefly filling the ears of strangers. I picture my friends dead nightly because I can't see them, because I can't hear them. I want to love them enough. I want to dress the wound of their absence enough. I thought I would be the dead one, stretched out on the coffin of my bed, the white bowl come to mourn one of its disciples, its head of 14 stars. But my body keeps telling me it is my friends who have vanished, that they will no longer tip $1 for a few pints of porter or stand in a kitchen full of words and laughter. I tell my body I will keep their memories, and my body says they will be anchors. Then I will collect their shadows, and my body says, you are not a reliquary. Their eyes are stitched shut, their mouths are stitched shut, and all the verbs surrounding their names are dead verbs. I don't want to hold my body. I don't want to hold my body or listen to it. From above, the clouds of Stockholm are a tilled white field, and from below, they are a low gathering of gray, letting go their misery. Tomorrow, I see the Vasa, a ship inlaid with so much gold it sank a few meters into its journey. It was raised from the water some 330 years after its descent into the silt and had a museum built around it. The voyage sallied forth in all its beauty and finally became a treasure, just like your life or mine, in a quiet, dark room holding a golden boat. A destination different than expected. So many paths, so many apologies, so much gratitude. Luggage rides the carousel, turning with a repetitive clank. The floor shines like a museum's. Art often seems a kind of funeral, the important things we leave. I half expect to see bouquets under the paintings. I never much believed in the muse, never much believed my belief was carried too far out into the world. In the gallery, doesn't everything speak to relations? Hasn't everything always spoken to relations, to the smallest gesture? Let the muse make whatever needs to be made. Let the muse tend the fire. Your whole body is curled like an ear I want to talk into all evening. Your hand a ring of articulated keys. I want that moment when we climb down the bright ladder of ecstasy, when our breath comes back, when everything is alive, present in the moment with nothing to wait for, nothing to worry over, only the need to rise into the beauty that is. The folded clothes, the interior of a suitcase with its personal logic, being carried on elevators and escalators, the moving walkway, being alone in a theater and seeing the latch, handle, and the old stickers stuck on the leather helping the narrative along. Then an open umbrella floating on the park's pond, the screen holding all that blue light. I always thought death would be like traveling in a car, moving through the desert, the earth a little darker than sky at the horizon, that my life would settle like the end of a day, and I would think of everyone I had ever met, that I would be the invisible passenger, quiet in the car, moving through the night forever with the beautiful thought of home. Like when my mother calls from the far side of history, saying, "Honey, everything brings everything back." A red bark tree applauds the day. Summer is warm and light so late. The bruise which was hers, the map she folded and gave to me. I think of her in the quiet house. In her death, I see her eyes closed in prayer, her hand that was never a star, her foot that was kissed but never a bridge, her heart that was never anything but a heart. I see her smoking her first cigarette, hip and shoulder against brick. I see her laughing in the blue car as it crosses the border. I touch a picture of my brother, born in early February. I remember the dream where she held a stone like a book of fables. I see the year of my birth, my mouth searching for her body. She often says, "Stars are cheap glass held in burnt tinfoil. Space, the unlike cousin to nothingness. I spent my life avoiding my life. It's easier than you might think. Time is a younger sister hiding her anger. I don't want to hold my body, the minor keys or the dissonant chords. There is space in here for you," she says. "There's more time than you can imagine." The purple tulips buck in the wind as if their white roots were a cavalry marching. Approaching the mountain, they are swallowed first by its shadow, then by its mystery. I'm confident there are different ways to think within my own thinking. One illustration of this is to look at a handful of bubbles from a bath. Across the concourse, a plane comes to a stop at gate F7. Soon, people will come through the door at the end of the hall. It's one thing, 1 second, another thing, another second. The chess clock counts 47 minutes before a rook is moved 1 square to the left. It's in the way you listen to the outward flow of another's resistance and to your own. You cannot lie. Each person watches the same accretion. None of us language. None of us silent to the way days happen. The blunt head of a pawn is stuck in the mesh of pieces, and the beautiful contention to survive. Sun warms the window, half the globe. Wind pushes through trees clustered with acorns. Cars line the gray pox street. It's so peaceful at 11 a.m. I understand light as a thing we breathe. Last week, the doctor let me use the otoscope to look into her ear. Hidden in the hollow, I saw a small cataract eye, an eye not meant to see or be seen, translating everything that comes to it. Like my mother, I don't know how to live. If only I could travel fast enough and far enough to see what has happened. The evening is trying to slip through a seam in the horizon. The moment I believe bats sleep in their cave like a dying black fire, I know I've begun my walk back to the beginning. This is a little bit longer. I was just going to read some new poems here. My mom shows up in that poem a little bit, and she passed away 2 years ago, and I was her caregiver for the last 6 months, and since then, I've just been writing poems about that experience. So I'm just going to read a few of those. Black snow. My brother sent a letter from the house where our mother is dying. He describes the planet Earth with its trees and low buildings wheeling past the sun. I picture him in the plastic lawn chair at the head of the driveway, a thistle growing in the crack beside his beer bottle, leaving a wet ring on the blonde cement. A tenuous, frail night, landing like a paper airplane in a field of high corn. Then fireflies, then mosquitoes pulling iron from his veins. Black snow. From my mother's funeral, I brought back Illinois. I brought back a ring and a necklace. I brought black snow. I brought a sense of cruelty and rage that felt fair to inflict on each moment. I brought back a new calendar where the days were 10 times longer and had to be opened using tweezers on a dial with a 6-digit combination. Moonlight glass. I miss everyone. I miss my friend Matthew and his appetite for acceptance, his kindness, exuberance, his way of making me happy in a world that snows. I miss my mother, whose first birthday after her death is today. I miss the red maple in her front yard giving its leaves to October. I miss my brother, who says the kitchen, not the bedroom, is the great room of intimacy. I miss the sky because I once read Hikmet list the cosmos as something he didn't know he loved. I spent the day discovering things I want and things I don't wear the same clothes. I miss my ex, would still spend an afternoon with her talking, would still sleep with her if she wanted to lose her grasp of language in a mess of cotton sheets. I spent my youth in church, not believing, but being unified after service, liking the white cars in the lot and the dogs behind the chain link. Tonight, on the shelf, a glass moose figurine holds in its left antler a tiny reflection of the moon that is somehow shooting through and illuminating its whole body. It reminds me of how I used to think of blood as its own being, as a creature searching for a way out. I take the moose from the shelf. It goes dark in my hand. It has no eyes, has no ears or mind. It has no mouth. But then its mother never had children. Estrangement. I live in your umbrella, standing on a sea of dirt. The white light of moon blasting like a bullhorn. I've done so much without you, I want to share. Weakness. I want what you want. I've always wanted what you wanted. This is New Moon. Some movie had come out while my mother was in hospice. Nurses talked about the lead, how sexy he was. A saxophonist in the 50s, wore a sharp suit with a razor-thin tie, gentle, with eyes that kept going. They showed me how to fold sheets in such a way that when I changed them, my mother didn't have to leave the bed. I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to go into houses and help people dying, which is what I was doing, except my mother wasn't a stranger. She was my mother. And my family was there, which was making it easier and much more difficult. I would heavily salt fried onions because that is what she loved. I would take the car and get her chocolate caramel explosion malts I didn't want to give her because that is what she loved. Her hands were beautiful. A neighbor's daughter came and did her nails, a Halloween orange, dyed her hair, waxed her lip. My mother told me the summer she looked best in a two-piece was 1963, then apologized for saying so. She was married twice, each for a span of 20 years. Each man was my father, but one of them wasn't. To tell the truth, the movie came out 4 months after my mother's death. And they weren't nurses, but friends talking about the lead. I went to see the movie. It was beautiful and sad. The choices and commitments were real and devastating. The man was sexy, more a minor character. I did wish to be alive in black and white, playing a horn like him. My history stretching back only an hour to the opening credits, where everything before them collapsed into nothingness, into no story, into something to sleep through, something to avoid by sleeping. I'm thankful she let me be close to her dying. It was a gift. Not a gift, really. It was how she took care of me, always showing me how it was going to be. My brother, my one brother who couldn't handle the moon sliding over our mother's face, took to driving and parking on the shoulders of highways. When I watched the movie and saw the woman walking back to the convent to maybe take her vows and become a nun, because outside the cloistered walls was insane, I thought of my brother. I wished he was with me, that we were watching the movie together, even if the theater was empty and the projector didn't have a bulb. Black snow. I want to tell you how lonely it is without her, mostly because no one asks. My tongue, a bank of fog in the birches. I don't know what it's like to live here. If this is the world, why don't I know where my body ends? Exactly okay. My father is a ship of moonlight docked in the harbor of a harvested field. Beyond is a hill, a wave of dirt breaking on the reef of the world. My family is buried out there, although it's not a cemetery, but a place made perfect by not existing. My mother wanted to live an hour longer than her second husband, but he's still breathing somewhere in Virginia. I too want to live by giving myself away. Eventually, I will give myself to death, who will probably make me stand in line on a street of Mondays before my real death and its long hours begin. I dreamed a commercial, a time-lapsed video of corn from sprout to bearded tassels swaying before the combine with the bright overlaid text, Coca-Cola. In the procession of leaves, I see the tree's principles, the tight concentric logic, the hidden cold maple in the rings, how sometimes things touch only themselves. Autumn, everyone with a light in their mouth, the small things making us happy, how it's only special when it's not meant to be special. Knowing your envelope, keeping my place in the collected stories of Elizabeth Spencer is one of them. And there's always Poland in my mind, the painted egg of Krakow. When I think of yellow, I think of mustards in glass jars and white bowls, and want a gold Trans Am with a cream and daffodil interior I can park in the sunshine of a Floridian Costco, a do-it-yourself or Dior colostomy bag to show off like an only child. It seems like a good way to leave this world. I feel exactly okay, the great claims having been undone. In the woods, bright as a flashlight, I see the season close down like a carnival. Hear my friends singing from a rowboat parked in their backyard, their Manhattans lit magically from within. Feel my knuckles ring out across the field of my body and see the bell of the nurse's stethoscope who happened to work the day I was born, the little microphone picking up the faint sounds inside. Everything opens and falls to the bottom. My mother is night above an ocean. Often I see her walking toward me, a million domains of light. The city bus being driven through the rain is carrying neighbors most of the way home. The trees along the way being just what they are, their bare branches signaling to one another. The bus working on the Sabbath. I love how you rent a seat like an apartment or pay mortgage on a 3-bedroom, split-level, mid-50s ranch. My friend Jay in the back, reading above the wheel well. This is called Happy Birthday. This is another moment of sheer just being a conduit. I was walking down the street and I said to myself, I'm going to write a poem called Happy Birthday. And then I made that happen. Because that's what we do. The universe is infinite and somehow expanding. If you believe what people say, then you believe each of us is at its center. And if it's your birthday today, it will also somewhere be your birthday tomorrow. As long as you are living, it is your birthday, and maybe even if you're not. So, happy birthday. The white cloth is on the table. The August light looks like early May, and dawn looks a little bit like dusk, and you look a little bit like me, and I a little bit like you. Our eyes are the only eyes we will ever have. A ribbon of cloud darkens above an ocean. Everything is happening. The moment is here. It has always been here. It is yours, and it is beautiful in every direction. Inward, too, within us forever, a shadow leaning all the way back. And yet, you live where I live, where sometimes all we see is violence, where the news is bad news. And it's not that the children are having children, it's that they're being let of blood, found slit and burned, tied to posts, wearing their uniforms. Isn't it awful? But aren't we thankful? Aren't our friends here with gifts? Isn't the grove alive? Don't the deer step into our lawns, onto our closely kept grass? What is it we expected? What is it we expected to understand? I wanted to begin by saying I'm sorry, not so much for being alive, but for living. Maybe you think that's weak. I don't know. I can only tell you how I feel. The houses in the neighborhood seem to be waiting. April is invisible. All the months are invisible. Whatever moon you see, call it your own. It's the only moon you will ever have. I do know you can listen to the waves breaking and not to the ones that have broken. But the definitions are just ideas, and purpose is in the living. I know you and want to keep knowing you. At night, sometimes, before I give myself to the quiet revelry of sleep, before I open its envelope and see the light of its kingdom, I think your face must be different than the one I see. I have forgotten what you told me as we lay on the ground, but remember the colors you wore. You are not an age, but a distance from your birth. I miss you. I drove to the sea, arrived at dusk to hear all the gray tearing at the shore before I saw it turn thin and white. The day unfurling out of its husk. The day with all its chance and change, with its nothing twice, with no one other than ourselves is coming. Red star, blue heart, happy birthday. Thank you so much.
Because that was kind of long form, the first draft. To me, that feels like creative nonfiction. Just saying. How do you even approach writing those long poems? Like come on, you're doing something almost breaking.
Well, that first poem, that layover poem?
Yeah, that was quite long.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. Yeah,
Well, that poem is actually just, there's a lot of old writing in there. It's sort of just a collage of stuff I had. And it's sort of, the first line is a true story. I was in Minneapolis and I was reading with Dorianne Lux, and she had to go to the airport 2 hours before me, but she wanted me to go with her so so she didn't have to carry her own luggage. That's my own personal opinion. And I was like, Dorian, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to sit in the airport for like 4 hours. And she's like, come on, it'll be fun. And I was like, fine, I'll go. And we went through the gate, and I dropped her off at her thing, and I talked to her for a while, and then her plane left. And then as soon as I left her gate, they announced that somebody was looking for Kenneth Koch, and my brain sort of exploded. Like,
You should say who Kenneth.
well, Kenneth Koch is a poet. He's a New York School poet, I guess famous in his own way, who I just know as a poet. I was like, well, they can't be paging him. But then I had like 2 hours before my plane came. So I went and got some sort of burrito somewhere and sat there and started writing this poem. And then with my sort of crazy idea of these longer, I should write a longer poem, I took a lot of old writing that seemed to have to do with like transportation, or just like seemed to fit, or I tried to make it fit, and it's got everything in there. It's got the ship, it's got trains, it's like a bad 80s movie in there in a way. But I mean, I don't know what to.
I guess it's just, I'm just, to write a poem, and I'm being kind of cranky about the length in the sense that that's an endeavor, right? I'm
Yeah.
not cranky about listening to you, I'm saying,
Right.
like, that's a long, so you have an initial entry, which is this airport scene, and that's what gives you strength to start going back into your old desktop, kind of notey little leftover things to start to like,
Maybe,
curate
yeah,
and draw, so that's my interest.
yeah. I guess. I felt like I had to write a poem.
But you would never really know that unless you were fast.
That's true.
You would think it was a complete piece, and then it's
Yeah.
which it is.
Yep.
I just wanted to set kind of
No. My inspiration lasts for like a second. And hopefully I have a lot of those that I can just stack up together. Is there another question or anything? Yeah.
Was it, I hope this isn't personal, but was it hard to write a second book of poetry because of how much success your first book had?
No, I just felt it was something, I don't know, I mean, wait, what was the question? Is it scary? Is it scary?
I don't know, or was
Yeah, a little bit.
Was there, I mean, did you feel pressure?
Yeah. Well, I feel like the book came out, and then I thought, like, oh, this is what I've always wanted. This is what I wanted to happen. And then I thought, oh, I guess I should write another one, or I guess maybe someone will be interested, or like, I felt like it's what I had done, and I thought, well, I should just do that again. I don't know if that's helpful. I mean, it wasn't scary, I guess. Yeah.
It sounds like you played the piano a bit.
Oh, no. I know, I'm horrible at music. I'm so bad at music when this poor woman that was teaching me how to play the Arvo part song, I kept referring to the keys as buttons. And it's a really minimal piece, and I just was like, just show me what buttons to push. I'm not, yeah.
Do you paint or do you cook? Or
No,
do you
the poetry's
do
all
art?
this is the only thing I can do. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
We'll make everyone sit down and listen to it.
Yeah. Just roll the piano over.
Minutes and 57 seconds.
Yeah. It's pretty great. Not really going to play it.
I was in the other place in the lounge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, I